Are we going?
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
Just to let y'all know it is 3:50.
3:15. 3:15. All right. So, Cully Templeton,
Yes.
welcome back.
Hey, man, it's good to be back.
It is. Isn't it good to be back?
I like it in here.
Not much has changed, I think.
Fun.
We moved the orange robot was fun for a while, but we decided he needed to go to the background.
You need that quote. Remember, you were going to American Dream, but you're going to have it in, like, the way I saw it, in, like, a piece of steel that's been cut out with a laser.
Like the Head Studios sign?
Water or
The one that's on the
laser
website
beam.
right there. It's not a dream. It's a little long.
It is a little long.
Okay. Trev, can you put that
There
up?
might be some dots
Hey, Trev,
in there.
pull that up. You got there we go. It's not a dream of motor cars and high wages merely. Yeah, it's a little bit long, but I don't know. We could maybe get that. What about like a nice needle point or something like that? You know, you do like don't you?
Yeah, I don't know
Maybe
how
somebody's
you could
got
do
a
it.
grandma who could do that on a needle point.
It is a little long, but I do like it.
I think we should just do the "it's not a dream" part, because then that like gets people's attention.
Yeah, just it's not a dream. There you go.
not
Just put
'cause-
that up on the.
Yeah, but then it's because they don't know the rest of the quote,
Yeah.
right? So then it kind of seems like anti-American for.
Or each week we could just put up a different part of the quote. You know, have different
Yeah.
cards. The thing I think that's really funny about this is this is lost maybe, you know, unless you read the book. And you know, traditionally when they publish a book, I don't know this is the case anymore, but historically, even when they would do a reprinting or a new edition, the pages were the same. Like whatever was on page 100 is still on page 100. And so this edition that I have is the same as I guess it's a 32 printing. The book was published in 31, but it's laid out the same way. And this quote about it's not a dream of motor cars and high wages, et cetera, but where everybody can be recognized for the full whatever it's like, it's on page 404.
Okay.
So in the internet age, 404 is like it's not.
I'm with you.
You get it?
Yes.
Like it's on.
I'm there.
It's
I got there.
it's literally on page 404.
That's pretty funny.
Not found. Page 404.
Yeah, not found.
Not found.
Yeah, I wasn't going there, but I got there.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
But we're not going to talk about that today. So here's what I want to talk about today. Last time when you were here, we were talking about are we getting dumber, right?
Yeah.
I think, and I was telling you about how I tried to promote that episode, but
YouTube.
the YouTube advertising.
We were too out there, Michael,
Yeah.
in our conversation.
So we have to be careful this time because if we want to promote it, you know, we can't hurt anybody's feelings.
Yeah. All right. I'll give it my best effort.
Yeah, we'll see how we do. But where's my okay? So I sent you a few days ago. I sent you this George Carlin video.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have to say, I'm a Carlin fan. I don't necessarily. I'm not saying I agree with him philosophically on everything.
Yeah.
But he had some interesting ways of looking at things. Like he had some
does.
interesting observations, and in particular, and the video I sent you, and there was another one that I didn't send you, but there's a piece of another one. There's a piece of the one I sent you, and a piece of another one, where he talks about politics and voting and things like this. And we're not going to play the video because he's a little coarse. I mean, we're not fussy on this show, but
Yeah.
like we try to be some
with you.
semblance of right. Also, I don't want to just
YouTube.
I don't want to hijack somebody
play it.
else's
Yeah.
content. But what I did do a very lightweight kind of transcription.
All right.
Of what not by lightweight, I mean I didn't. It's not the whole thing, but these are the exact words. And so he makes a point in here. He makes a couple of points in here that I thought, you know, I kind of get that.
Mm-hmm.
Like when it comes to like, does it really matter what we do? And so let's just start with this. He says everybody complains about politicians. They suck. Now, I like this. So where do you think they come from? These politicians that suck. They come from American parents, American families, American homes, American schools, American churches. It's much better when he does this because he has that kind of way of singing and talking at the same time.
Yeah.
American businesses, American universities, and they're elected by American citizens. This is the best we can do. So his point is, if you have selfish, ignorant citizens, you're going to have selfish, ignorant leaders. So there's that part.
I think it's pretty profound, actually. I mean, I did like the bit, and this piece here, I was like, I could not agree with you more.
So, it's true, right? Now, he also goes on to say that, there's another part. So there's that part. So so the part about these, because there's this thing about we elect these politicians and they're supposed to go do good things, and then we complain because they suck, right? So then there's the next part. Trev, can you scroll it down a little bit? And this part I think is interesting. So he says, I've solved this little political dilemma for myself. On election day, I stay home. I don't vote. Which, of course, we're supposed to vote. Everybody's supposed to vote. We wear little stickers. I'm the first person to say you're supposed to vote. But this is an interesting point of view. He says, because it's meaningless, the country was bought and paid for a long time ago by the owners of the country, the real owners, the big wealthy. So really what he goes on to say here is the big corporations and the special interests that actually control everything, and they have the politicians and everybody else in their pocket. He says, this is an interesting statement. The politicians are put there to give you the idea that you have freedom of choice, but you don't, which would suggest that it's all a bunch of theater. Mm-hmm. You have owners, they own you, they own everything, they own the land, they control the corporations, bought and paid for the Senate, the Congress, the state houses, the city halls, judges in their back pockets, and they own all the big media companies, so they control all the information that you hear. Is there anything after that, Trev? Is that the end of it? Oh, and they spend billions of dollars every year lobbying to get what they want. So
I wish I was on the other side of a lobbyist. It seems like the lobby always has a lot of money, a lot of fun.
They do.
That they're pushing to you. And I enjoy
good parties.
I enjoy good parties.
They have good parties, the lobby. Actually, I know a couple of people that work for lobbying groups, and I don't think they're all as glamorous as the ones that we hear about. But so
there's a lot here.
Yeah.
There's a lot here.
So let's break this down because I think that I can't say that I am unsympathetic to this, and there have certainly been times when I've woken up on election day and thought,
what is my vote really going to do?
And not, so if you Google why should I vote or why does my vote matter, you'll get all the platitudes about why we should vote and every vote counts and this is what democracy's made. And we know, but forget about all that. This is saying, if the system that you think that is, if the system really isn't the system, then you're just, I don't know. What do you think? How does it strike you?
I do agree with a lot of it. Certainly the, ignorant voters, you're going to get ignorant politicians. I get where he's coming from on that for sure. I do think I've spent some time on this one, Michael, since you sent the thing.
That's good. That's why I prepped you. Yeah.
And I do believe that your perspective might change on your political outlook depending upon how involved you were, where you were at, etc. But I don't know. I keep coming to this thought that I think there is an inflection point of visibility, maybe, where, yes, if I got involved in my HOA board, I could probably have good visibility and see exactly what's going on. State level, probably not as much. Fed,
forget about it.
It's way too big, way too muddy, and your impact is so minimal it doesn't do shit anyway.
Right. If you even have an impact, if the people at that level.
So maybe like HOA, your MUD district, your
maybe the
school boards, county,
maybe not Harris.
Maybe
County.
not Harris.
Not Harris County.
You got
yeah.
Fred.
Don't say Dora. But so this is a good point, which I've said a lot of times, which is Well, so there's a lot more that can be done. The government can do the most good. So the government, right, whatever level the government you're talking about, can do the most good at the lowest level and the least good at the highest level. Which is why originally the country was kind of put together such that, the states had most of the doing, and the federal government was smaller, and we've kind of inverted that over the years, and
why not?
We've transferred the most power to the level that can do the least good.
Those people at the top, they like to have fun too. So
let's
money, power,
send all the money up there.
It all up.
Let's do
make
that.
It bigger. Yeah.
So that's a topic for a different podcast. But the point is that if we're going to get involved and try to do something, we're going to try to vote and make it matter and whatever else. We stand, like you said, we stand a much better chance at the lower levels, But ironically, most people, when they think about voting, like the most people that vote for president, right?
Yep.
And then, like, how many people actually vote? And there's fewer people that vote in their local elections, but everybody votes for president.
Have you found, this may be a little bit off topic, but just going along the lines of ignorant voters and ignorant politicians, have you ever spent any time trying to find information on those that are maybe running for county commissioner or some seat that you really don't know much about? Hell, even like the Texas Railroad Commission, something along those. It has a lot of power.
Yeah.
A lot of power. Trying to find information on who these individuals are, where they stand, what they've been doing is not easy. I mean, it's really not. So I'm bouncing a little around, but
Is it?
I haven't found any decent site other than they ask 3 questions and they're like, yep, no, I go to church a couple times a year. I believe in corporal punishment. It's always some BS coding. Anyway.
Well, yeah, I guess you'd have to go to like each one of their websites. So you're saying there's nowhere that really aggregates that information?
I don't think there is. I mean, my website, if I'm running for something, it's going to answer it in all the best PR, sell slicky bullshit. I don't believe any of it.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So how do you know?
What sort of positions were these you're talking about?
Like, I would say even Texas Railroad Commission or judge of precinct 32. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
There's 3 names of
or
people.
Even like,
and it got all 3 representatives. You've got the Republican, the Democrat, and the Independent.
The county
or the
judges.
Yeah, and you're like, I don't know.
However, it brings up a point, which is...
I mean, there's like voter... Sorry, I'm going to yell on mic. There's, the voter inform site. Anyway.
But that brings up another aspect of this, which is in a 2-party system where everybody who's a member of each party almost always sides with their party on everything. You got your couple exceptions out there like Joe Manchin and people who buck their party, but it's very infrequent, even at the local levels.
Yes.
So I had this conversation with somebody during the last election, I think it was during the midterms, and she said, oh, well, I never vote a straight ticket because, because that's just stupid. You should research each of the candidates and vote for the one that you think best represents your interests. So even if you're primarily a Democrat or you're really a Republican, you shouldn't vote a straight ticket, which is the conventional wisdom. But I said, but wait a second, because the system doesn't work that way. One party or the other is in control. So the only thing that you can do when you vote is vote for whichever side you like, you want to have the control, right? Because nobody ever does anything. Nobody ever acts out of line with their party. Very rarely, right? So splitting up your votes to the candidates that you think are most in line with your point of view it doesn't really do anything because one party or the other is in control. So you're really not voting for candidates. You're voting for a party.
Yeah.
That's really what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, no, I agree with what you're saying. I do think the straight party or straight ballot vote, I mean, it does have some consequences as well. I mean, because that's how you get 28-year-old county judges in place of the second largest, third largest county in the country. You know, that's
fair. Okay, yeah. That's why we don't have a straight ticket in
That's
Texas
my
anymore.
guess.
So,
I'm thinking that was the straw.
that might have been it. So, all right. So let's back up. Let's go back to our. Hey, Trev, can you pull up that? Put up the Mark Twain thing.
But it's kind of scary a little bit when you think about that, Michael. That's exactly what it is, and it's getting less and less, and it's boiling down to two parties, and it really doesn't matter at the end of the day who they bubble up to the top that they think will get the most votes. It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
It's those parties that you're voting.
Now, I found out from Snopes that Mark Twain didn't really say this, but he gets a lot of things attributed to him, and him and Einstein.
Yeah,
there's a lot of things that they said
That's
that they didn't really
fact.
say, but it sounds like something Mark Twain would say, and somebody said it.
I like
so
it.
if voting meant any difference, they wouldn't let us do it. That kind of sums up what we're saying right
Yes.
here, right? Which is, you know,
does it make difference though over time? Can you? I mean, it's a big ship. I'm assuming we're for the most part talking about Fed level type voting. It could be at any level, but don't you think over time, isn't there a little bit of hope there? There could be the slightest bit of correction.
well, then you come back to Carlin's point about the stupid people. Actually, there's something. I was reading an article. These guys from the Brookings Institution. The title of which was like "Voting Makes Us Stupid," and not makes us stupid as individuals, but makes us stupid collectively. And they actually do a really nice job of breaking down the reason why direct democracy voting really isn't effective, because most people are, as we've talked about, they're not well informed, and they have a bias. Everybody has a built-in bias, and like there's all these reasons why if you actually just let the will of the people decide important policy issues, that you'd probably have a mess. Mm-hmm. And so what you need, they argue, is what you actually need is a more institutionalized approach that says the reason why we have a representative democracy is because we're supposed to put people out there who are smart enough and know how to work through these things without bias and can make good decisions about, what's going to, like, that's the idea. But
I'm with you. I'm trying to think through what would they do differently. I agree. And there's also a story that sounds very similar to where they've kind of played that out, where if the will of the people, the level of the uninformed of those people, like what it ultimately would look like. I don't remember if it was a little short story or a short film that I saw, but it kind of plays to that. But that's where I was going in my mind as you were talking. I don't know what you would do really differently, though. How you could, in today's world, like how would you change that with the noise, the level of noise that we as the voter would hear? And I'm still kind of on the, uninformed, ignorant people get ignorant politicians. We've all come out of the same muck.
yeah.
I don't know.
Trev, you got anything?
Well, so
Throw it to Trevor.
the whole idea. Well, okay. The main point that comes to my mind when talking about should you vote, should you not vote? There's two things. One, is who you talk about not voting. Who wouldn't want you to vote?
Ah, that's a good point. So if I do vote, who am I thwarting by voting?
By my suspicion receptors go off and say, okay, who's telling me that voting is not important?
Yeah.
So, and I think the other point is that people, they argue about, oh, does your vote matter? Does it not matter? Well, okay, no, your vote doesn't matter. It doesn't have a significant impact. Your vote. Everyone's vote does have an impact, whether that is on an actual election result, which the trend lately has been counter to that.
Oh, careful. We want to promote this.
I know.
Easy.
But it also, and I think this is the biggest effect of this is that it's a cultural level thing. So, okay, you say, oh, I don't vote because it doesn't matter. Okay, do you want more? Would you want everyone to be like you? Are you acting in a manner that you want to see more people like? Well, if everybody or a lot of people took that approach and just quit voting and just kind of submit to whatever happens, then whatever happens, happens.
Yeah. What if we all stayed home? What if nobody voted?
Well, that's my point. Is that
because, I mean that.
Well, the people who didn't want you to vote, now it's a lot easier.
All right, so let's break down what he just said. So there's a couple interesting points. The first one is who.
Trevor has spidey sense.
Yeah.
That's one.
So who would want us to not vote?
The people you wouldn't vote for.
Okay, well, hang on, but if the point is, well, actually, you end up going in circles on this. So,
okay, let me put it this way instead. Actively not voting, removes yourself from the system.
Yeah.
But there are people who are trying to run that system.
Does the system really operate as a result of voting, or does the system operate the way it's decided to operate, and the voting thing is just to make us feel like we have a part in it?
Well, no, it clearly does have.
I'm not saying the results are hijacked.
I'm not saying a system effect, but again, it's the cultural effect of you see all these arguments in the news. You see riots happening about that are very closely related to the subject of voting. So, we have to be even careful about talking about voting. So, like, if we just all pretend like voting wasn't real, and we just went completely
maybe it's not real,
tyrannical.
No, okay.
I think it is.
Okay.
I think you can move the needle. I'm just thinking through this as he's talking.
And the cultural thing is, again, what Carlin talks about is on the personal level. Because it's not your vote that matters. It's
the fact that we're all doing something
attitude.
together.
I mean, wouldn't it be easier for them if we all just quit talking about voting?
That's
if
true.
we all pretended like we didn't exist.
But, okay, all of that notwithstanding, and in fact, there's an American Psychology Association article about this psychologically, why do people vote? It has nothing to do with politics, but because kind of what you're saying, it's like we have this sort of built into our identity, like this is what we do and this is who we are.
Yes.
However, if the fact of the matter is that no matter who you vote for, and this goes back to Carlin's point, it doesn't matter whether the Republicans win, whether the Democrats win, whether your guy wins, whether my guy wins, whatever. In the end, the government is going to do what the real owners want them to do. The special interests, the big money, like what they're going to do, it might look different on the surface, and they may argue about shit all day long, but what comes out at the end is always going to follow whatever the big money corporate special interests want to happen. And I don't want to get into things about pharmaceuticals because that'll get us thrown off. And I don't want to get into right, but
Damn,
but if that's the case, if the government and whether this happens at local levels or at federal levels, if ultimately it doesn't matter which party wins, it doesn't matter which candidate wins, they're going to do the same. They're going to do what the owners want. Then voting.
So I
just
think
something that makes
I think
us
it
feel
depends
good.
on at what level that end is that you're referring to. So
Well, is it really true that that's what happens? Is it really true?
No. I think there's levels to it. There's here in America. Let's say, at the end, eventually, at some point, to some level of people whose names we don't know, they're controlling things and they get some output. However, we can still live our lives freely to an extent, whereas you take other countries, we'll use historical examples, Soviet Russia, where they still had the control and they still controlled the output, but they were
That's a good point.
The freedom for the people were on a much more restricted level. So
living in a controlled environment where you don't get to do what you want and living in a controlled environment where you do get to do what you want, I mean, the second one's better.
And it's all about adjusting.
As I understand it, yeah.
It's all about adjusting the distance between our freedom and the determined.
Are they able to extract what they want from us without? And by the way, I don't want to cross over into the elite control of the world thing because I mean
We're close.
I do love that topic.
We're close.
But
We're right on the fringe.
I'm just sticking with the idea that it's the big money, it's the big corporations, it's the big industry, it's the special interest group, it's the lobbyists, right? So
I think there are certain truths to that, but I don't think it's that black and white as most things aren't. I mean, just as I'm thinking through this, as you look at what happened in this last election that for the presidency, Trump, Biden.
yeah.
I know many people, family, etc., that voted one particular way only because they hated the other one so much. And you can probably guess how they voted on that. But at the end of the day, Biden's administration's in. I just don't feel that the outputs of the Biden administration right now, if there's this machine in the background, is the same as what you would have if Trump were in there.
Fair point.
So I think the outputs would change and based on the vote of who's in the office. So I do think there is a change that can take place. I don't know how much we can influence it though.
It's a good point because even at a local level, we saw when the local Harris County leadership changed, there was a change in the way business was being done.
Yes.
Now,
Like all those, they're not the
it
same
also happened
friends
right in the
aren't.
middle of COVID and everything else, so it's hard to
Like
compare.
my
apples and
allegiance is over here is with Roy. I've been giving him the back. He's got side deals. I've made side deals with it. Now Roy's gone,
apples. Right.
and I don't care for the new judge,
Yeah.
or whomever.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So, it's a good point.
I do think there's still an aspect. I think the truth of the big corporations, the big pharma, the lobbyists, special interest groups, they're still marching towards the same goal, but the way that they have to navigate the new administration will change.
So the output is different depending on who's.
for some period of time. Yeah.
I'm not sure about with Congress because they just never can get out of their own way to really do anything, which is kind of okay.
Yep. That one seems like the biggest stagnation, inflation, whatever you want to call it. Like it just sits there. I mean, it does. The moves are so small, one way or the other. Is it going to be this way forever? So, anything ever going to get done there?
Yeah, I don't think. I mean, yeah, they just argue and fight. I mean, and then eventually they figure out. I mean, I think that I feel like Congress spends most of the time is spent either trying to figure out what to do about like the next budget decision or trying to figure out what to do about the next debt ceiling problem. Like probably half their time is devoted to those two topics.
I'd be interested to know really what they do, especially the more vocal ones, because I feel like that's really what they're focused on. It's similar to the person that they'll ask you a question and they're not listening to your answer. They're just thinking about what's my next question. That's how I see a lot of the mouthpieces.
Yeah.
And on both sides, really. I don't ever see anything getting done other than here's another tweet about something that they're upset about.
A lot of tweets. So, all right. So what did we settle to?
Where are we at?
So it does perhaps make a difference. Like the system's not completely rigged.
Yeah, I don't think so, because there's no way you can go to that. There's no way you can go to it's completely rigged and not venture off into the Illuminati, and there's 12 people that own the world and they make all the.
Is it 12, Trev? How many is it?
I don't know how many it is. I was just throwing a number out.
Yeah.
Isn't it 13?
It's gotta be
13?
It's got to be 13.
Yeah.
It's either
That makes sense, actually.
It's either
There's only one ultimate judge, though.
yeah.
You know, your time is coming.
We did a. I don't know if you've seen it, but we did a back porch conspiracy edition episode.
I did not see that.
Yeah.
That does sound good.
Yeah.
And y'all got into.
We did it on our
Illuminati?
back porch. Yeah.
But y'all delve into the Illuminati.
Well, we did
New World Order.
New World Order.
That's
Fortunately,
real.
So the fun part is that YouTube added a context block below our video that includes the Wikipedia definition of New World Order, just so that people don't get confused. It's the same Wikipedia definition that I read out loud on the show. They added it in a block. So it's good that YouTube's watching out for you to make sure that you don't get duped by anybody
Good.
who's trying to. It's good.
That is good to know.
So
I don't like being duped.
all right. Nobody likes being duped.
Thank you, YouTube.
So
Got my back.
all right. So let's go back to
Do you mind putting the quote back up? Because there was some other goodness there at the bottom
Carlin.
that I
The
felt.
Carlin. Yeah. Okay.
So I feel like we've hammered this politician thing pretty good, but in my mind, we're down here. We're down there in the bottom.
We hit the bottom part.
Yeah.
What we didn't really hit was the problem of how do we produce the sort of people that are going to do
exactly
the right thing. Because this happens all the time, right? Politicians campaign, even local politicians. They campaign, and in fact, Wes Friedel was on the show, and he was a Texas congressional candidate, and he said, we saw it all the time where somebody either from the state legislature or a congressman would come back home. This is part of what made him try to get into politics. He said, they'd be at the local event in the rally, and they're talking about all the things they're going to do and what they're going to represent and the causes that they're going to support, and then they go off to Austin or to Washington or wherever they're going to go, and they don't act that way. They do something different, and it happens all the time. So what's the point? So you're kind of damned if you do and damned if you don't. So we can't just have people directly involved in the decision making because the average citizen doesn't really know, nor should they know.
Yeah.
Right? It ought to be left to the experts. But if the experts say one thing and do something else,
So what the hell's the point?
What?
Yeah. So two things come to mind there. I just heard here recently. It's kind of it falls in the line, or what pops in my mind is, the only way you'll ever understand, it's a little kind of a saying, but the only way you'd ever understand a manager's decision is you need to be put in manager's decision, and then all of a sudden why the hell did they do that?
I have been there on both sides of that, right?
The employee is always smarter than the manager until they get to be a manager, and then they're like, okay, now I understand why.
This is hard, yeah.
So another one the other day, I was listening to the radio, to your point, Dan Patrick, and they're talking about the number of sessions that they are so limited with a state the size of Texas. The argument was, why would we only do this every 2 years? Why wouldn't we do this more often so we can get some things actually through? Well, they quoted Dan Patrick in like 2010, and he's banging his fists and waving his arms about we need to have more sessions. We need to fix this. And the reason that they only have it every 2 years is because in the 1800s, when the state was first formed, it was a lot of work for the people to get to Austin to travel.
Right.
So they only wanted to make it every 2 years. Not the case anymore, as we all know. But lo and behold, here's Dan Patrick. He's waving his arms. 2010. He's like, we got to do something about it. Now that he's in charge, we're not doing it anymore.
You're not doing
We're not doing it anymore.
Once every 2 years
Once every 2 years, more than enough. And it's interesting, to your point. We're like, well, hell. And is what he's doing, is it wrong? I don't know. Has he gotten to that position where he's like, well, I was pretty uninformed when I was yelling and banging on my desk back here, but now that I'm in the position, maybe I see things a little differently.
Yeah.
I don't know if Dan Patrick's worth a damn or not. I'm just simply saying, like, there's an example that I've heard of someone that was saying one thing, they got to the position, and they're doing the opposite of what they were originally yelling about.
Right. So for those not from Texas, Dan Patrick is the lieutenant governor, which is a significant role in Texas. And in fact,
I forgot that this show's international.
It's not only, this goes all over. It's intergalactic.
Yes. I forgot about
because now that the aliens, now that we know that the aliens are here, they're all, I mean.
Do we know?
Yeah, we know.
Where are we from? Where are they at?
I'm trying to get this guy on the show who, Stanford, this guy from Stanford who, was recent, but he's really hard to get right now. He told me that he had to hire somebody just to try to schedule all his, because he was there was an article in Popular Mechanics. He's been looking at he's been brought in to study people's brains who have supposedly had these like encounters with otherworldly encounters, and he's like something's definitely going on with
interesting
brains. Anyway, he did send me a nice letter that I'm pretty sure was ChatGPT written, but
somebody's got to type that into ChatGPT.
Somebody's got to do that. It
doesn't just think for you.
Yeah. So, so an interesting thing about Texas is that I don't think there's very many other states that are like this. The governor and the lieutenant governor do not like run on a ticket together. You could actually have one be a Republican and the other be a Democrat. They get elected independently.
Talk about stalemate, like nothing
would ever get them.
No.
So, so how do we? So Carlin says, the public. Actually, I cut out some of the parts. He has some pretty coarse things to say about the public in this segment of his
I
bit.
do recall.
But the point is, how do we get? How do we send, if we're going to send people to our state capitals and to Washington and even to our local, state house or county houses or whatever, how do we get people that,
will do what they say?
Will actually do what they say. And but you made a good point. That whole manager thing, maybe.
That's what I do, Michael. I try to make good points when I'm on this show.
I mean, it's possible that this is a little bit, ends justify the means, but is it possible that I need to say these things to the people because that's what they want to hear, and then they're going to elect me, and now still acting in their best interest, I'm going to do something different because I, together with the other experts, know that we can't really do that. So we're going to do this instead. And I know the people are going to be pissed at me, but ultimately this is for their own good.
You would want to hope that that's majority of the time.
I mean, is that the motivation, you think?
Maybe. But there is some... It really comes back to, in my mind, when I hear that, is, are they all corrupt? Is everybody corrupt?
Is it corrupt, or is it just...
It's just kind of how you have to do it, man. It's
how you have to get it done.
It's the game within the game.
I don't know.
I don't either. I want to know how you get in it. How do you get elevated? How do you go from marching about something that you're passionate about? Maybe you're not passionate about it. I don't know. Maybe you're just like, this one needs something. How do you go from that to being an elected official? It seems to me a pretty good jump.
Well, I mean,
have you had anybody on the show that's been an elected official and kind of how they
Ryan Stinton,
came about, how they get their how do you even get your voice up to the your name high enough where people are like, oh damn, Roy, he's.
Well, nowadays I think it's easier because you got social media and stuff. You know, I don't know how you did it before. I mean, you had to get backers, and you had to buy ads, and you had to go around and do a lot of. I think now with social media, it's probably a little easier because it gives you more of a voice.
Yeah.
But I had Ryan Stinton, who was the Texas Railroad Commissioner, not on this show. I need to get him on this show. I had him on the Oil and Gas Tech podcast because he also owns a technology company, and so he had that. But
you had it on your ONG Innovation.
Yeah.
Formerly known
as Oilfield Ingenuity. So, all right. So, what have we determined here? Because I know we probably got to wrap up. You got a few minutes.
I do have a few minutes.
So we've determined that it makes sense to vote anyway.
I do agree. We didn't hit on that, or I didn't say it. I should say that when I originally watched the clip that you sent, I didn't agree. I don't agree with the stay at home. No, I get that it's part of his bit, and it's funnier to go at it from that angle. I mean, I get that.
Well,
this is no political genius. This is just a friggin' comedian.
There's another part that I left out. The part I left out of this because it wasn't really relevant. I left out of the transcription was where he says, "Also, I don't vote because you know the old thing about how if you don't vote, then you can't complain." Mm-hmm. And he flips that around and says, "No. What's more logical is." If you vote, you can't complain because you're the one who elected that son of a bitch, right?
But what if I voted? I'm with you. But what if I voted for the other person? You can still complain.
True. Yeah, well,
you can still say
that's the advantage of having a microphone all to yourself on the stage. Is you don't have to go.
Isn't it kind of weird? He goes on that bit about how voting doesn't do anything, but then he tells you that if you voted, then it's your fault.
Yeah.
I get it's the bit, but also
that's good.
Situational irony.
Voting doesn't matter, but if everything goes to shit, it's your fault because you voted for the guy. Right. So
I thought it didn't do anything.
But it doesn't do anything. But it's still your fault. Point. So all right. So what else did you want to tease out of there?
That was really one of the bigger ones. I wasn't. I didn't necessarily agree with it, other than from a comedic standpoint. I get it.
It is funny,
but from a real life standpoint, I mean, I've got family members. They were frustrated.
Frustrated.
Yeah, R is silent, and
that's East Texas English, Trev.
Yes.
You might not be familiar with that.
Done been frustrated about this.
And they didn't vote. They felt like that was their way of saying, F you to the whole thing.
Well, hey, congressmen get to vote present. I mean, they like people in Congress can decide not to vote on something, and they vote present, which just means I was present for the vote and I didn't vote.
I didn't have a yay or a nay.
I mean, I don't think it's so
that's an interesting point. Yeah.
I think there's a difference between saying I never vote because it never matters and saying in this particular case I chose not to vote.
Well, in this particular case, the not voting, where I do not agree on the not voting, was they didn't care for the presidential candidates. But my argument was there's a lot more you're voting for
on the ballot, right?
On the ballot than just the presidents. I mean, don't vote on it. Write in somebody's name. I don't care.
Yeah.
But there's other things closer to the House that are probably could impact you, like a 28-year-old county judge.
Yeah. Yeah, she's done so well too. She's really. We haven't heard from her lately.
No, she cussed at Adrian Garcia the other day.
Oh, did she? She said a bad word.
She did. She refuses to apologize. It was interesting.
Trevor's finding it.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Hidalgo. Lena Hidalgo.
Lena Hidalgo.
Lena Hidalgo says something bad. She seems so sweet though.
She does seem sweet.
And and she's so well spoken, being a career academic.
She's one of those that, she was out marching about, 8 years ago. She's out marching and waving a flag and got a bullhorn. And then the next thing you know, she's here. I mean, that's kind of the American dream right there.
Yeah.
Except rather than going business.
Yeah. She's not even from here.
She's going, now look.
Yeah, it works out well for her. Are we going to.
So she curses him out.
Yeah. But there's an interesting. But you're making a good point here, which is. I think I don't know. Is it working, Trev?
It's not. Yeah,
it's not working.
It's not that great.
It's not that great.
She drops an F-bomb. It doesn't.
I can't believe I missed it. I'll look it up later.
It was impactful.
But.
No, we are not going to explore moving this program to the DA. You're putting these interrupters at risk. So if we're going to do that, we need to take a vote on it, because I don't want the interrupters to be watching this and fearing that they can't do their jobs, because then they're going to be the ones that get shot. And if my colleagues want to put this in the district attorney's office and the sheriff's office, let's take a vote and let's be on the record who wants it to go where, so that I can then go explain to my community what else we're doing, because some of us are wrapped around the little finger of a woman who I don't know what the she's threatened you with.
Hey, she made her point.
Well, no, she didn't. when you don't know what to say, drop an F-bomb.
Yeah, you're right. She didn't really make her point. She made her.
She had us, and then she lost us.
Yeah, I like the fact that she sounded impassioned, though. So
she did sound passionate.
I think this would be a good place to wrap up, because what a lot of people, kind of like your family, who said, there's an election, I'm only thinking about the president. Most people, if I guarantee you, if I walk up to the average person on the street and I say, did you vote during the last election? They're not going to think about the midterms. They're not going to think about the locals. They're going to think about the last presidential election. That's what people. But that is where we have the least impact, and where we have the most impact at the local level, at your school board, at your county. Whatever, different states are organized different ways, but your municipal elections, at your whatever, like that's where the decisions are made that impact your life the most, unless you live in a border town, in which case it's a whole nother situation. But that's where I think where the opportunity is, and that's where the least involvement is. Agreed. I'm
with you.
Yeah.
I tried arguing that, and it didn't go over for whatever reason.
So doesn't matter.
Frustrated, and then
frustrated. Yeah, I mean, we saw that during. Okay, I have to be careful how I say this. So, a couple of years ago, there was this thing going on that was impacting everybody's life a lot and causing, restrictions on movement and different aids.
Yeah.
And different people in different places were dealing with it in different ways. And here in our geographical area, depending on whether you lived north or south of Spring Creek, so if you're in Montgomery County or you were in Harris County, the experience that you had was very different based on how your county leadership was handling the situation.
Yes.
So without saying whether one was good or bad, the point is it was different. Like the people who lived north of Spring Creek, right? So in one county, were having a different experience.
Talking about where they could go to a bar.
Yeah.
And have a drink.
They could do a lot of things. Yeah.
During a period of time when others couldn't.
Right. And again, without arguing for the better or worse of either one, the point is that the output, going back to your point about the output, was different depending on who was in charge.
Yeah. No, we got there. We came around. I think that's it.
All the way around.
I think ultimately what we're saying is voting does matter. You can make change. In some in greater instances than others.
Yeah.
It's interesting you talk about the I know we're getting close to wrapping it up, but it's interesting that the president gets so much mean, it makes sense why, but the elected president or the election of the president is what has all the headlines, everything you need to know, and then you get to the ballot, and it's 48 pages long, and you're like, who the hell are these people? I don't even know this.
It's hard to find information.
I don't even know if this is. You needed a guy here. Like, I would have raised my hand.
Right. By the way,
if I'd have known this was an elected, like, why not? Sure.
And by the way, you can't take your phone into the polling. So you can't even be there.
I violate that rule every time.
You can't be like, oh, let me look this guy up because I don't know what, or this woman. Like, you can't. You're just.
Have you found that your voting center are kind of Nazi-esque older women and men? That maybe even a little Gestapo in there where they don't play games.
No, they're serious.
And they will jump in your ass in a heartbeat.
Serious.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch.
Yeah.
Because there's always the one idiot
Gestapo
that doesn't
is probably
know
the better.
Cully likes women jumping in his ass.
Yeah.
To
I
reiterate.
enjoy watching it from time
They're
to
serious.
time.
They're not.
Yeah, they take it very serious.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch. I mean, it's
like, if they tell you to go this way, you got to go that way.
kind of like that World War II pride that the country had, where if they told you you're doing this for our troops, they're out there like they're hitting a hammer on the license plate. They're like, my boys need to know that this is car 72 or whatever.
Right. I mean, it was. I got through this whole thing without. So as I mentioned, I was shaking off a cold this weekend, and I got this far without. I was trying not to laugh because I'm going to go into a coughing fit. But
well, I don't want you to do that.
I think you might be onto something there, and maybe that's. I mean, but that gets into a whole other thing, which is it is not hard to vote. Like and I don't. I can only. I've been in Texas my whole adult life.
Yeah.
It's never been so. When you look up the reasons of why people don't vote, most of it's not all the deep philosophical stuff that we've been talking about. It's like there's a long line, and
we didn't even go there.
Yeah,
we didn't even touch on that.
Yeah, because that's like trivial shit. The fact is, I've never had to stand in a long line or.
Let me ask you this though. Are you able to have the freedom of kind of going in and out, like you drive by and you're like, no, not today, and it's like 10 in the morning, or I think about this because I'm the same way. I can drive by. I work from home, so I can check out. I can check out at 9 in the morning. Like, no,
I'll come back tomorrow.
These people are idiots, and then you can come back the next day. Whereas if it's difficult for you to get off work and you only have a slight window,
right,
maybe you're a single mom, kids at home,
you do shift work,
you're doing shift work,
right.
I could see where it would be easier for me to pass up a vote if it were a pain in my ass.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, if I feel like it's not gonna, it doesn't matter anyway.
I don't think it has anything to do with voter ID. I think it has to do with how big of a pain in the ass is it for you to go vote.
I mean, the ID thing to me I just don't get it. I just don't get it.
I looked it up. I did some. I went to a couple different sites trying to understand the argument of why are we pushing this, and it really just falls flat for me in every area, and it just doesn't. I don't understand.
Yeah, this is the only reason why you would. The only reason why you would be against requiring identification to vote, there's only two reasons. One is because you're just mindlessly bought into some ideology that doesn't make any sense. Or two, because you'd really like to get a lot of people into the polls that aren't supposed to be there for whatever reason. Trevor's got something. You're leaning in.
It's all to distract you from the voter manipulation that's taking place.
Oh, so we're going to have to cut it off now. We're never going to get...
Yeah.
We got it. Yeah, no, I don't... I mean, and by the way, we're the same people who are against identification to vote are for identification to buy guns. and the same, and vice versa. You know, you look at that both ways, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, people, you know, people just sort of tailor that whole identification thing. People tailor to their own interests, and you know.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I don't
Yeah,
really.
the argument that I saw was essentially it discriminates against those that are in poverty because it average person, you know, it costs a bus ride of X amount of dollars. They lose this amount of money to get, you know, off work to go get the ID, you know, stand in a line and all that good stuff. And
they already have an ID.
they already have an ID.
Well, and I've seen the only experiments I've seen people conduct where they like actually go out into these poorer towns and ask them about how accessible an identification is. The only experiments of that I've seen have resulted in them saying, "Oh, yeah, no, it's the DMV right there on 7th Street."
Yeah. They all know,
right here,
right?
whatever.
Yeah, they go out. Yeah.
I've never seen it go the other way.
Do you have an ID? Yeah, of course I have an ID. There's so many things in life that you have to have that for.
Yeah.
Like, why
I
pick?
got some ID for you right between my legs.
Jeez. You see, now we're gonna have to cut it off.
Now YouTube's definitely
Pull it out
like,
for you.
Yeah, no, that part they wouldn't have any trouble with. That'd be all right. All right, are we done? Is that it? We got to get you out of
More
here.
PP
Any
jokes?
other? Did we get it all? I think we got it all.
I think so.
So I think what you've convinced me that I should keep voting
Yeah, I think so.
because it's like the placebo effect. It makes me
At a minimum, it's going to make you feel good.
at a minimum.
That's important.
It's going to make me feel good.
On Judgment Day, you can say, "Hey, you know, I did my part."
I voted. I voted. That's it.
What else you want from
I
did
do.
it.
There is also just part of the American, you know,
It's
psyche built in. You know, I mean,
it's
yes,
part of who we are and what we do.
Absolutely.
Well, as soon as we collectively agree that voting isn't real, then what will happen?
I do think it would be interesting, like if you couldn't get the whole country to do this, but let's say you could get like your whole county to stay home. Like what if nobody voted?
I'm sure somebody would win. Probably the person you don't want to win.
Like,
Have you ever seen the movie Vice? With and it's about what's his nuts, the Corbett Halliburton, Dick Cheney.
Dick Cheney.
And in the movie, it's a good movie. It was much better than I thought it was going to be, and much different than I thought it would be. But in the movie, he's running down this course of his manipulation of both, you know, George Jr. and just his power and control that he has. He's running down his course, right? He's doing his thing, and then he says in the movie, and then all of a sudden it ends because they lost. The administration lost.
Right.
The vote went another way. And that's kind of stood out to me a little bit on the power of the vote. I mean, I realize it's a movie and it's for theatrics and all that, but there is a sense of change that will happen in an administration, whether at local government or federal government, by voting. So I think to come back around, vote.
Yeah, vote.
Go vote.
Go vote. All right, it's not. I mean, and we do have some. Do we have elections coming up? Let's see. This is June. What do we got this November?
No, we're pretty excited right now about 2024. I think.
2020. Yeah,
I think that's all we're talking about.
We are coming into the campaign season.
God, what a long year and a half it's going to be.
It is going to be a long year and a half, but it's
There's
already
74 Republican nominated. I think it's the latest.
74, 75, whatever it takes. It's the entertainment value is going to be high, though. I think
It will be.
I think the entertainment value is going to be high, and I don't know when the last time this was. The incumbent president is not running unchallenged. Like there's a primary.
Yeah, he is. Robert F. Kennedy.
Yeah, and somebody else, whatever that woman's name is, I forget.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
So
I had it reversed on what you're saying.
Yeah. So people are running against.
Yes, in the
That doesn't
same
usually
party.
happen.
I know.
People
so
are
going back to your party comment earlier.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like they're like, yeah, we gotta do
That
something.
this
different
doesn't
here.
work.